We do have to make a societal change. What do you guys think about that? And if you agree, what is that path?
I'd say again, I just think we're using the wrong framing. There's 76 million people in the United States who are over 70 years old now. Right, you've got a demographic cliff in front of your face. It's happening in Europe. South Korea got to a 0.7 replacement rate right now. Right, we've got a population collapse coming. Maybe those young kids are dead right. They should not be doing any of this stuff because it's all worthless. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe they can see what the future is for them, which is they're going to be replaced pretty quick. The reason you don't want to hire these people is you don't need to. That's the dirty truth here. And we'll need to hire less of them. What is happening is a much larger disruption, but it's not in the way of the past. It's always so easy to say the past is going to repeat. Sure, but in different ways. There is whole revolutions happening in front of us that are going to shape society in ways we can't yet understand. And we're looking back saying, well, maybe the dollar gets trashed. It's like, oh my God, can't you see what's in front of us? Now, I'm an optimist. I think there's a path that we figure it out, but I don't think it's going to be without volatility. But it's going to be driven by that and not that. That is known.
And that is AI, robotics.
That forward is AI, robotics, longevity, so many structural changes, cracking the entire human genome and figuring out medicine, so much to deal with. That is, well, we spent too much money, we're debasing the dollar, we're going to have a hyperinflation. It's like, yeah, tell me something we don't know. Tell me something we don't understand. We don't understand that. That's scarier. Now, it could also be great. It could be amazing, a world of opportunity. But my God, it's not going to be a straightforward course, right? It's just not.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, I think inflation is the answer. I mean, it's not the correct answer. It's not the solution.
And can you, sorry, Peter, just to check something, can you, inflation versus debasement, are they the same things to you? CPI versus, no.
I'm trying to make a point. He said inflation was he didn't think inflation was the answer. I'm saying it is the answer. It's the wrong answer. It's not a solution. Unfortunately, it's the politically expedient choice, because the right choice is too difficult for politicians to make, because politicians, their primary goal is their own reelection. And so that's how they see every problem is, how do I get reelected? And so they're not trying to make things better for the country. They're trying to perpetuate their careers, which are often at odds with what's right for the country. So we're going to get stuck with inflation no matter what. Now, can we get an offset to that by a burst of productivity, which without the inflation would just be even better, right? Because the free market is trying to lower prices by increasing productivity. The government is raising them by creating inflation. And so it's a dance. But to the extent that we can have a huge surge in productivity that's driven by AI or robotics or a combination of the two, that's actually a good thing. That's not what you'd be afraid about when it comes to AI. I mean, if you're going to be afraid about something, the fear is that AI decides to kill us all, and it could actually do it, right? That's the supposed fear, not that it takes away our jobs. We don't want these jobs. We want computers to take away our jobs. That's great. Then we don't have to do them. We still get the stuff without having to do the work. I mean, every advancement has, reduced the need for human labor. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of society, everybody had a job. It was looking for food all day long. That's what you did, right? You had no leisure. You had nothing because you worked every minute of every day. I mean, other than when you slept. But as we invented things and tools, we didn't have to work as much. And so we had more leisure. Ultimately, if we could replace all human labor with machines, we're all going to have a lot more leisure. And we're all going to have a lot more stuff.
Are we going to have a system of money? Because money is like expenditure of energy, whether it's human, brain power, whatever, and in exchange for money. Right?
And ultimately, in an ideal world with complete abundance of everything, that we won't even need money. If I could just push a button and have everything I need and I wouldn't have to pay for it because it just gets conjured into existence by some super intelligence, right? I don't need money anymore. Money just facilitates trade. Somebody has something I need or I want. How do I get it? Well, I got to give them something that they need or they want. But rather than barter, we exchange a mutually
But if we're not bartering,
commodity.
if we're not bartering our own services, intelligence, physical labor, how do we earn money?
Well, how are we going to earn money in the future? We may not need to. That's my point. But obviously, between here and there, people have to find, how did somebody who got put out of business, with a shovel, a guy that was digging a ditch, and now somebody invents a shovel, and so we don't need as many ditch diggers. So what did that guy do? He did something. And so people are going to have their jobs replaced by computers or robots, and they're going to do something else. Instead, I don't know all these things, like what they're going to do. But the problem might be if the government says, hey, you lost your job, so just go on welfare and here's a check. Because, that's a big problem if that's what happens. And then people end up getting entrenched, in that state of dependency where they don't go out and find something else to do because they just, stick with the government check. And that check is offsetting the benefits of productivity because the government prints money to pay somebody to do nothing. So it's the government that would make the mistakes. It wouldn't be the free market innovating. It would be the government inflating and getting in the way.
Looking forward, we're in a big year, 2024, election year. Obviously, the halving cycle, the debt restructuring all happens in the same year. What do you guys think the world looks like with a Biden victory? What does it look like with a Trump victory?
No different. In market terms, no different.
You don't think the market will have a response at all to one or the other?
Won't give a shit. It's really driven by liquidity and flows. It's going to be, they're all doing the same game. No, I don't think it makes a single bit of difference. I've not seen an election that has turned markets because shock, somebody's come in. Donald Trump, huge shock. What did the market do? Sell off for exactly one evening. Brexit, huge shock. What did the market do? Sell off. It just doesn't matter. Politics don't matter in the short run, but obviously they can change the structure of economies in the long run. But the market doesn't seem to concern itself with that when liquidity seems to be the dominant factor that drives markets, and that's driven by central banks.
Do you think they're still going to be printing their way out of problems?
There is no choice.
Either one?
There is no choice. What are you going to do? You're going to bankrupt all the baby boomers, blow up all the banking system because for what? Justice? The right answer is to blow it all up? Nobody's going to do that. It's insanity. They will never do that. So they will do absolutely everything within their power to try and not let that happen. And that, it goes back to what we've all been talking about, is however you define inflation. I don't think it's CPI inflation, it's asset price inflation via debasement is the game. Financial repression, let's call it that. That is the game. And they will do that. Now, Peter may be right. Maybe it ends up in hyperinflation. I would put a very low probability.
That's the worst case scenario. I don't know that that's where we're going. I mean,
no, and again, I would say that's the worst case scenario and possible. I don't know what probability, but yeah. But yeah, that's what they're doing. They'll keep doing repression. Why not?
But in answer, it's not going to change the game. I mean, Trump's been president before. I mean, he didn't change the game then. He ran up the debt when he was president. I think on the margin, it's worse to reelect Biden than to put Trump back in office. But I don't think that Trump is going to, change what's going to happen. We're going to have a currency crisis. We're going to have a sovereign debt crisis, whether Trump or Biden is in office. Whether it happens during that 4-year term, again, I don't know. I mean, maybe they kick the can down the road and it happens, on the watch of whoever replaces them. Because whoever wins, we know one thing, they can't run again, right? You only get to run twice. So if whoever wins is not going to be president in 2026. So maybe they get out of Dodge and maybe they don't. But I would think that assuming we had the collapse during the term of whoever wins, right? We have a crisis. I would just assume have Trump there than Biden. Trump has a greater probability of doing the right thing. than Biden. Biden maybe has no chance of doing the right thing, and Trump maybe has a slim chance. So slim is better than none.
And doing the right thing in this case would be spending less at the government level.
Well, dramatic cut, right? They have to do the opposite of every political instinct, because what they want to do when the economy is weak, they want to try to stimulate it with more government. They want to run bigger deficits. They want to cut taxes. They want to print money. They have to do the opposite. They have to shrink government, cut spending. They may even have to raise taxes. I'd rather them just do it all from the spending side. But they got to cut spending. They got to let interest rates go up. They got to let banks fail. They got to let companies go bankrupt. They got to let people lose money. They got to allow a lot of painful things to happen to have a real recovery that is on the other side.
So do you think is that what they should do you think?
Yeah, of course. They have to do the right thing. It's like if you have a drug habit, stop taking drugs. Yeah, it's not going to be good. You're going to be in withdrawal for a while, but you got to get the stuff out of your system. You got to be healthy. We can't keep drugging ourselves up and then we die of an overdose. That's where, that's what hyperinflation is. It's the equivalent of a monetary overdose. You destroy the currency and then you destroy the economy. And so I want to avoid that. I want to we need to restructure the economy in a sustainable path. It's not on that now. It's a house of cards. And I don't want to keep the house of cards going, knowing eventually it's going to collapse even worse. I want to let it collapse now so we can start replacing it with a structural that's sound, a real house, not a phony one.
So we've heard clearly what you want to happen. What will happen? What do you think?
They're going to keep on printing until the dollar collapses. Now the question is, when the dollar does collapse.
Let's stop there a sec. So they're going to keep on printing. So given that information, what would you do investing?
I'm doing exactly what I'm doing now. It's like but I'm hoping that they stop the presses at some point when it gets bad enough that they, because once it's so bad.
Then all of your assets go down, right?
See, let me finish this point. Once it's so bad that everybody in power knows they're gone. Hey, there's no way I'm getting reelected with the economy this bad. Then maybe they'll do the right thing because they've run out of options, right? They'll do the right thing only after they've exhausted all the other possibilities. So we may be able to do the right thing and stop the presses, before the dollar goes to nothing. There is no graceful way out at this point. We've long passed that, right? There is no pain-free solution here. You could hope that AI eases the pain, and maybe it does. Hopefully it will. That would be good.
And I take this differently. I'm like, if we have an observable behavior which is most likely to repeat, however ugly the situation is around us, we can actually help ourselves get out of this trap at individual level by investing correctly around this. This is what I strongly believe in. I think the world is truly screwed. But, as you pointed out, there is only one way they will deal with this. Armed with that information, that is like the magic bullet. This is everything behind this idea of the everything code, is if you know this to be what is going to happen, you can look into the future and you know what the hell to own.
Except every time they've done it before, the dollar hasn't collapsed because people have maintained confidence.
But if the dollar collapses,
if the
assets
dollar
are going
collapses,
to go up.
it's very different. It's going to look very different than what you've seen in the last 20 years.
I don't know. Last time I checked, the Venezuelan stock market went up like a rocket ship. All I'm saying is,
but
Tom, you and I spoke about this when we first started speaking back in 2020. This is the life raft. Right, the life raft is what saves people. It could be gold. I have no issue with that. It could be Bitcoin. It could be tech stocks. It could be whatever. You shouldn't be concerning yourself with any of this stuff, this apocalypse, because we know the outcome is financial repression and print more money. Right, so we just get to hop on the life raft and we avoid all of that. That's what I don't get about all of the doom arguments is, I get it. It's totally screwed, but it's so predictable because we all agree what they'll do.
Right, but the thing is, they've been able to do it and not precipitate a real crisis.
That only matters if we do a different thing in the face of what we've all said, too much debt, inflation's the only answer.
No, not a different thing. If we keep doing the same thing, eventually it's not going to turn out the way it has. The world is not going to accept it. The world is not going to believe. Our ability to stimulate with QE, with inflation, is predicated on the false belief that the Fed can shrink the balance sheet, withdraw the liquidity, normalize interest rates, we can pay off the debt. I mean, when the markets come to the unfortunate realization that that's not true, then the bottom drops out and we can't kick the can down the road anymore because there's no more road. And then we have to deal with the consequences in a way that we haven't had to deal with them in the past, right? We can't send out stimulus checks because they bounce, right? Or they don't buy anything.
Forget about the big picture, what they must do. What happens to humans in that level? You and I in investments and Tom, right?
The individual.
What is it? What happens, right? So let's play this out. And I've gone through this in great depth. Is when you play it out, if you go to a hyperinflation, he who owns assets wins. Fact. If you go to any of these,
you certainly lose a lot less. I mean,
the only way you do not win is if they do what you want the most, which is tighten policy so badly that you let the air out of everything.
Yeah.
Then we completely get nuked, and we are all poor.
What I want them to do, what I advocate that they do, is contrary to my strategy, because I don't invest based on what I want, but based on what I expect. I expect them to do the wrong thing. And so that's how I invest it. But even if they do the right thing, I think I'll lose a lot less than everybody else, which means I might win, because it's all relative. So if my portfolio goes down, but the things I want to buy go down even more, I'm wealthier. But yes, the best thing for my strategy is that they do the opposite of what I'm advising. But that's what I expect them to do. You know, you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. I hope they don't do these mistakes, but I'm pretty sure they're going to make them. You know, that's just the most likely scenario.
I'd rather they didn't do what you want them to do, because everybody is going to lose their entire...
No, they're going to lose more if they do what I expect. Inflation is going to wipe out more people than honest default and restructuring.
Slower. It'll happen slower. You can take your pains fast or take it slowly. It's all pain, right? It's all pain.
It will be slower. Yeah, it'll be a slower death, but it will be a more painful death.
It's all pain. I get that.
I have one last question for you, and it'll be quick. Over the next 6 months, where do you guys think the price of Bitcoin is going to be?
Well, I would guess lower, actually. It's gone up so much at this point. 6 months from now, my guess would be lower. It's about 60,000 now, right? 61,000. So I'd take the under for 6 months.
I'll take the over just on the historical pattern of election years, stuff like that. It tends to go up in a straight line. So, you know, my time horizon is not really 6 months, but generally speaking, in these election years, this kind of Bitcoin halving cycle, it tends to be higher. So significantly higher.
Significantly higher. So not just higher.
No, I think
how much higher?
I think, I don't know, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me if it's trading at 75,000 by July, August.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it's 20,000 or less.
If you like that clip, check out the full powerful episode here, and I'll see you there.